Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Kerr back here. I'm with Alex Meyer. And okay, so the Tony Awards are tomorrow night, and Alex and I are here to discuss our predictions for the winners. And as whether you've seen our video, well, previous hangout on the nominations. No, Alex and I, well, we're not based in New York City, so we don't have access to any of the shows. Thus, we haven't seen any of the nominees. So we're basing our predictions purely on what we've been researching and following. So we're starting with the play categories. We'll be working our way through each and every one of them, and of course, Alex and I will each take turns reading off the list of nominees before we dive in. So starting with Best Play, the nominees are The Children, Fair and Aliens the King, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Parts 1 and 2, Junk, and Latin History for Morons. So, okay, we're pretty much starting with a softball right here, because out of the 5 nominees, only one of them is still running and is the most talked about, and that would be Harry Potter. Because while it's pretty much like the Hamilton of this year, well, on the play side at least.
Yeah. Or I guess if you want to compare it to movies, it could be like The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King at the Oscars.
Right, or Titanic.
Or Ben-Hur, because those 3 films share the record of most Oscar wins of all time.
Yeah. Interesting how we were able to name them off one by one, yeah.
Although I should say the 1959 Ben-Hur, because there's been several versions of Ben-Hur. There's
right. Yeah, the most recent one that came out a couple years ago that wasn't well received.
As well as a 1920s silent version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but still, he's talking about the version with Charlton Heston.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was about to say that while Harry Potter may not end up doing as well the Tonys as it did at last year's Olivier Awards in London, I think it should still be a big night for everyone involved with it.
Yeah, I think it's... actually, with the 2 big contenders we have with Harry Potter in the original plays and Angels in America and the play revivals, I think this could be very similar to like the Oscar race a few years ago between Gravity and 12 Years a Slave, where Gravity pretty much swept all the technical categories, but 12 Years a Slave took home all the big ones like Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay. So I could see like Angels in America maybe not winning a lot of design awards, but cleaning up in like the big awards.
Well, yeah. In fact, we should point out that the revival of Angels in America is actually the most nominated play in Tony history. It beat out Harry Potter only by 1 nomination, but hey, still.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, and, well, yeah, in fact, I will say that if there is somehow an upset, I probably Fair and Alien the King, given how that was the second most nominated of the Best Play nominees, and it was the last one to complete its limited run, so it seemed too far removed from voters' minds, but I doubt it after all. I mean, this is the first of my 2 super bets in predictions.
I have my super bets in 2 of the acting categories, both of them involving big legends.
Okay, well, we'll be getting to those, well, hopefully shortly, but in any case, the next category is Best Revival of a Play. Alex, read off then. I'm sorry?
Weren't we going to discuss our rankings real quick of who we think's likely to follow up?
Well, I guess, okay, I guess we can do that real quick. I don't want to get too much into them, but 3rd place, The Children, because, well, that's the only one of the 3 that has an additional nomination, which is in a major category, Deborah Findlay in Featured Actress. And there's 4th place, Junk, which, well, it has 2 nominations overall as well, but the other one is only in lighting design. And 5th place, which was the surprise nominee, Latin History for Morons, which was John Leguizamo's one-man show, but he's already receiving a special Tony this year, so we don't have to, so he should be satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, I have those same exact rankings too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the nominees for Best Revival of a Play are Angels in America, The Iceman Cometh, Lobby Hero, 3 Tall Women, and Travesties.
Okay, in any other year, this probably would have been a competitive race given the slate of nominees, though none has been more talked about than the frontrunner, that is Angels in America. I mean, Tony Kushner's epic 2-parter has proven to be more relevant now than it ever was before.
Mm-hmm. And if there, and I don't think anything can upset it at this point, but if there was a very small chance that something could, it would probably have to be Three Tall Women, because this was the play that basically um, was a complete career comeback for Edward Albee in the 90s after he pretty much produced several flops in the 70s and 80s. It won him his third Pulitzer Prize, but it's never been on Broadway until now.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, in fact, not to mention that the lead producer of Three Tall Women is Scott Rudin, who, of course, has an amazing track record at the Tonys. He's won like hundreds of them at this point. I literally lost count, but yeah, since, especially within the last 4 years, he's won at least one Tony for Raisin in the Sun in this category for Curious Incident as a backer. He wasn't the lead producer on that. He's won for Skylights in 2015. He's won for The Humans and A View from the Bridge 2 years ago, and last year he won for Hello Dolly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering if he's the most awarded. Is he the most awarded producer in Tony's history?
I don't know. I should definitely look that up. I mean, I know those Tony wins are what put him in the EGOT club.
Yeah.
So let me see. He has about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It looks like he has about 15 of them.
Okay, so he's getting close up on Harold Prince's all-time record of
Oh,
Tony
yeah.
wins.
Well, yeah, I don't know how many of them are for producing because he's obviously won several for directing, plus a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And as for, well, yes, I agree that I guess the alternative would be Three Tall Women, which is what I do have in second place. So I guess the rest of my rankings are third place, The Iceman Cometh, given how that did very well in nominations. And there aren't really many opportunities to award that, but I don't see it happening. Fourth place, Travesties, since that earned rapturous reviews late in the game, and fifth place, Lobby Hero, pretty much because, well, that's the least nominated of the five, and it recently ended its limited run, so it's not really as much in the conversation.
I have the same top three, but then I switched up the last two. I guess Lobby Hero might have more relevant themes, even though it's now closed.
Yeah, but hey, it was at least a great first step for a second stage, as they're now a player on Broadway.
Plus, I know some people think Travesties is too confusing.
That's a good point.
I mean, they obviously have no chance of winning, so it doesn't really matter what ranking they're predicted in.
Well, yeah, especially since we'll never see the full rankings among the entire voting block, but that's a whole nother conversation. So now on to Best Lead Actor in a Play. The nominees are Andrew Garfield, Angels in America, Tom Hollander, Travesties, Jamie Parker, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Mark Rylance, Fair and Aliens the King, and Denzel Washington, The Iceman Cometh. Now, this is a pretty, well, I mean, again, any other year, this would look like a pretty competitive category, but I do have Andrew Garfield out front. I mean, since his breakout role in 2010's The Social Network film, his star has been on the rise with a Tony-nominated Broadway debut in the most recent revival of Death of a Salesman, a critically acclaimed turn as Spider-Man, and an Oscar-nominated performance in Hacksaw Ridge. Now he looks like he's set to win his first major award for his powerhouse performance as Prior Walter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's probably unbeatable at this point.
Well, yeah, plus he's literally been everywhere talking about this play. He was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He was on the Sunday edition of the Today Show with Willie Geist. He was on Show People with Paul and Torque of Broadway.com. Yeah, he's been everywhere talking about it. So, yeah, and though as for the rest of my rankings, second place I have Jamie Parker because with Harry Potter looking to do very well in Tony Night. I mean, it could take an acting award, and who knows? He might repeat his success from last year's Olivia Awards, though it doesn't look likely at this point. And third place, I have Denzel Washington because he's pretty much the main attraction of the Iceman comic, taking on an iconic Eugene O'Neill character. And again, there's not really many opportunities to award the production, but though I don't see it happening here. And fourth place, Mark Rylance, who may have won a Tony for every single prior season he's had on Broadway, though he could be hurt by the fact that Fernoli and the King had already completed its limited run, and his competitors are in productions that are still running. But hey, he's done it before for 12th Nights a few years ago, but I don't see it happening again this year. And of course, fifth place, Tom Hollander for Travesties.
Yeah, those are my exact same rankings too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, is there anything else you'd like to add, or shall we move on to lead actress in the play?
We can move on to lead actress, and this is where I have one of my two super bets.
Seems like a good place to do so.
All right. So the nominees for lead actress in a play are Glenda Jackson, Three Tall Women, Condola Rashad, Saint Joan, Lauren Ridloff, Children of a Lesser God, and Amy Schumer, Meteor Shower.
Mm-hmm. And okay, in what has essentially been a pretty slow year for the lead actress in the play race, Glenda Jackson appears to be the frontrunner for her grand return to Broadway as a 92-year-old woman with encroaching senility in the Broadway premiere of Edward Albee's Three Tall Women. I mean, after having spent so many years as a working actress, she took a long break to become a member of Parliament, and when she retired from politics in 2015, Jackson returned to acting with various roles on stage in London, and now she's back on Broadway for the first time in 30 years. She's celebrating her 5th Tony nomination and is likely, though it seems indefinite at this point, but she's likely about to become the latest performer to have won the Triple Crown in acting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this woman is a huge awards magnet. She managed to win 2 Oscars for Best Actress in only 3 years, for Women in Love in 1970 and then A Touch of Class in 1973. And she also won 2 Emmy Awards for the miniseries Elizabeth R., where she played Queen Elizabeth I. And I believe she's one of the few performers to have been nominated for a Tony for every Broadway production she's ever been in.
Well, yes, and another one of this year's nominees, Diane Rigg, on the musical side, has done that as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, I think like this is just I think probably the biggest locked award of the night, it seems, because this has been just such a small year for lead actresses in plays that I don't really see how anyone can possibly top her at this point.
I agree. I mean, we should also point out that the other 3 nominees are all the only ones representing their productions. Like in my second place ranking, Lauren Ridloff, I mean, reason I have her in second place is because of the other nominees. She probably gotten the most attention of the 3 because, she was originally involved with Children of a Lesser God as a sign language consultant, and then she, an untrained actress, ended up making her professional acting debut in this play when what has in the past been an awards magnet for Phyllis Freelich and Marlee Matlin. But then again, no one saw Children of a Lesser God, so it's really no contest. And third place, Condola Rashad, she's now received 4 nominations within the past 6 years. And, I guess voters may feel she's kind of overdue at this point, though, again, St. Joan, even though it's ending its limited run tomorrow, well, it's pretty much been under the radar. And Amy Schumer, who's my 4th place, well, her play Meteor Shower has pretty much been long gone since January, so she's not really in the conversation at this point. But hey, at least she'll be at the Tonys as a nominee and presenter.
Yeah. Imagine if, despite its critical bashing, Uma Thurman had still gotten nominated for The Parisian Woman.
I'm sure a lot of critics might have flipped the table if that happens.
Of course, she managed to not only be nominated, but win the Broadway.com Audience Choice Award for Best Actress in a Play, which makes me wonder how many people actually saw the play and just voted for her just simply because she's Uma Thurman.
Well, yeah, that's the thing I have. Well, that's the little, I guess, thing I have with these, audience choice awards because it tends to be a popularity contest more than anything.
Right. I mean, If Then managed to pretty much sweep simply because I guess of who was in the cast, like Idina Menzel and Anthony Rapp, and I think
And Finding Neverland the following year.
right simply because it has had Matthew Morrison, you probably had all the Glee fans voting in droves just for him.
Oh yeah, now Mean Girls this year.
Right. Probably just people. I wonder if a lot of people voting for that just voted because of the movie and not the show.
hmm Yeah, but in any case, let's move on to the next category, featured actor in a play. The nominees are Anthony Boyle, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child; Michael Cera, Lobby Hero; Brian Tyree Henry, Lobby Hero; Nathan Lane, Angels in America; and David Morse, The Iceman Cometh.
All right, so this is where I have my second super bet.
I
I have
figured.
Nathan Lane in first place. And this would be his very first Tony for a dramatic role rather than a comedic one.
And his first for
Um,
a play and as a featured actor.
mhm. And then I have
Because,
Anthony Boyle in second place because even though Nathan Lane seems like a lock, I could see maybe a slight chance of an upset by Anthony Boyle if like the voting's really close, but I don't think it's going to happen.
well, yeah,
Then
in
I have
fact, I should point out that Nathan Lane should probably feel lucky that he was the only one from Angels in America to have made it into this category. Thus, he's not at risk of vote splitting with a co star.
But even if one of his co-stars were nominated, I don't think vote splitting would hurt him in this case, just because, yeah, just because like the acclaim he's gotten for his performance as Roy Cohn, I think would have helped him
Well,
overcome the risk of vote splitting.
true, because many people who've seen Angels in America have said that he's been giving the performance of his life.
Yeah, I mean, which is interesting because I mean, you expect Nathan Lane to give a good performance in almost anything he does, but like he always Nathan Lane almost always plays very likable characters, so you wouldn't really expect him to play someone who's completely loathsome like Roy Cohn.
Yeah.
Even though he's dying of AIDS, he's not a sympathetic character because of his past history of who he was.
hmm Well, yeah, not to mention Roy Cohn has also been mentioned in the news a lot lately because of his associations with Donald Trump.
Right. So then I have Brian Tyree Henry in third place, David Morse in fourth, and then Michael Cera in fifth.
Oh, well, I actually have David Morse in third place, mainly because, well, Aceman Coneth is still running, and he was the only an ensemble of a lot of men. He was the only one who to have made it into this category because I believe in the past, when Iceman Cometh was recognized, I believe Kevin Spacey for the last revival in 1999 was nominated for Denzel's character, and of course Spacey's career shall now rest in peace. But yeah, but still, I could potentially see Morse being a wild card, but probably not. And I have Brian Tyree Henry in fourth, mainly because, I guess pretty much because a lot of us were predicting him to get nominated, though in fifth place, Michael Cera was a complete surprise.
I guess I have Henry a little bit higher just because of how much acclaim he received for his performance.
Well, true, and he's also been having a great year not only this, but also his role on Atlanta, his Emmy-nominated guest turn on This Is Us. Not to mention he's in that new movie. Was it Hotel Artemis?
Yes, and I believe he's also in the upcoming. Hopefully, we'll see it released sometime in the fall because it doesn't have a release date yet. But Barry Jenkins' follow-up to Moonlight, If Beale Street Could Talk, which itself
Oh.
is an adaptation of a James Baldwin novel.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's a good case you made for Brian Tyree Henry, and again with yeah, because yeah, I agree. Nathan Lane, after or having already won 2 Tonys for his work in musical comedies like A Funny Thing Happens on the Way to the Foreman Producers, both roles were originated by Zero Mostel. It looks like the beloved Broadway icon will likely win a third Tony this year for his dramatic turn as Roy Cohn. Though Anthony Boyle, he has been singled out by many for his performance as Scorpius Malfoy in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and he even managed to win the Olivier last year as part of that play sweep. So, I mean, who knows if David, in this case Boyle, could be able to take down Goliath, in this case Lane. But yeah, I agree, Nathan Lane's out front.
Mm-hmm. We should also mention that The Iceman Cometh actually kind of has a little reunion of sorts because two
Well,
of
yeah,
its stars, David Morse and Denzel Washington, both were on the 1980s medical drama St. Elsewhere together.
right. We talked about that during the nominations video. So I guess if Morse were to win, Denzel will be very happy for him.
Right. Although I'm not sure how I'd have to watch St. Elsewhere, but I'm not sure how many times their characters had interacted with each other on the show because that was such a huge ensemble show.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but but yeah, I mean St. Elsewhere, that was like basically without St. Elsewhere, there would be no ER or Chicago Hope or Grey's Anatomy.
hmm Yeah, so anyway, now on to a featured actress in a play. So I believe it's your turn to read off the nominees.
Yep, the nominees are Susan Brown, Angels in America, Noma Dumezwini, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Deborah Findlay, The Children, Denise Goff, Angels in America, and Laurie Metcalf, Three Tall Women.
Okay, so interestingly enough, two of the nominees in this category are Broadway debutantes reprising their Olivier-winning performances in epic two-parters. There's Noma Dumezwini, who plays an adult Hermione Granger in Harry Potter, and Denise Goff, who plays a pill-popping daughter-in-law in Angels in America. And, of course, with Susan Brown also in contention for Angels in America, I mean, she plays multiple roles, mainly an overbearing Mormon mother who struggles to accept her closeted son. And with both those ladies having such media roles in Angels in America, they could be at risk of vote splitting. Though I could see, even though I don't have her predicted, I'd say Goff would be the more likely standout. Not only with all the acclaim she received, but also she could be helped by some visibility she had earlier in the season with her performance in People, Places, and Things at St. Anne's Warehouse.
So who do you have in first place?
Well, I actually have Noma Dumezwini winning because, well, again, with Harry Potter set to win big, because it's likely to, with Harry Potter set to win big, not only best play, but and also in other categories, which we'll get to soon. I just have a feeling it could end up taking an acting award, and with Andrew Garfield and Nathan Lane both out front in their categories for Angels in America, I could just see Noma Dumezwini winning here as the acting MVP for Harry Potter, and not to mention that Broadway, etc., is on the same page with me.
Mm-hmm. I actually have Denise Goff winning just because it seems like Angels in America will have more snob appeal with Tony voters because of its iconic status.
Yeah,
Plus,
very true.
plus this is an awards bait role. I mean, I forget, I don't know who played the role in the original Broadway production or if she won a Tony for it. I don't know if that happened, but I do know that for the HBO miniseries, Mary Louise Parker won an Emmy for her portrayal of Harper.
hmm and I'm looking up right now the lady who's in Denise Goff's part in the original production, which was, her character's name was Harper Pay. Yes, Harper Pay. I kind of thought so. Marsha Gay Harden played Harper Pitts in the original production, and she was nominated, but interesting enough, she did not win. Neither did her co-star Kathleen Chalfant. They both lost to. Let me see who they both lost to in 1993. Yeah, they both lost to Deborah Monk for Red Curtain.
Mm. I guess there must have been vote splitting that time. But I
Well, yeah,
mean,
and I don't know if Mary Louise Parker was up against a co-star for the HBO miniseries or not, but
I think she might have been. I don't know.
well, I'm looking it up. But yeah, I mean, I agree that I could definitely see Denise Goff winning. Though then again, there's Laurie Metcalf, who, while she may have already won lead actress in a play last year for Doll's House Part 2, I mean, she could still be a threat to win again this year for Three Tall Women. I mean, for one, she is in that honeymoon period, as we talked about before, and especially as Sally Field would say, when they like you, they really like you. And not to mention that of course, I'm not familiar with Three Tall Women, but from what I've read, that her character is almost like a lead role. Like, it could have competed as lead, but knows competing and featured. And I don't know if Tony voters are thinking like this, but who knows? There may be quite a few of them who may feel sorry for her after her losing the Oscar earlier this year for Lady Bird, as well as the most recent behind-the-scenes drama of Roseanne Barr that she had to put up with.
Yeah, well, I have
Ah,
for the rest of my
Oh wait,
for the rest of
I'd like to point out that when Mary Louise Parker won the Emmy for the HBO miniseries of Angels in America, she was not up against the co-star. She was up against Angela Lansbury for The Backwater Lightship, Angelica Houston for Iron Jawed Angels, Anne Heche for Gracie's Choice, and Julie Andrews for Eloise at Christmas Time.
Mm-hmm. But for the miniseries, a lot of there were some people who did beat out their co-stars, like
Right, Meryl Streep beat out Emma Thompson, and
yep,
and
and
Jeffrey Wright beat out Justin Kirk, Ben Shankman, and Patrick Wilson.
mm-hmm. So,
and of course, Jeffrey Wright was reprising his Tony-winning performance from the original production.
Yep. All right, so
oh yeah, and the rest of my rankings, yeah, I have Susan Brown fourth and Deborah Findlay in fifth, mainly because, well, her show's closed and she's up against performances in productions that are still running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my bottom three rankings are the same as yours with Laurie Metcalf, Susan Brown, and Deborah Findlay, but just my first and second place are different.
Well, understandable. After all, I guess it is kind of nice that we don't agree on the exact rankings of everything because, hey, it'll be interesting to see which of us ends up doing better on Tony night.
Yeah, I guess with these Tony voters, it'll be interesting to see like how much they liked Harry Potter before this play, because I imagine most of them didn't grow up reading the books like you and I would have, or grown up seeing the movies like you and I would have. But
they
probably
would
have read the books or seen the movies with their children or their grandchildren.
Well, yes, though it is worth noting that according to the recent New York Times voter poll, which this year surveyed about 110 out of 842 voters, again, this is only 15% of the voting bloc, so we don't know if it's the general consensus among everyone else. But still, many the voters that were surveyed went into Harry Potter not expecting it to like it very much because it's a two-part play based on a series of children's books, but they were blown away by it.
Mm-hmm. It just seems to me like it seems to me it'll be more impressive. I'm sure even if the acting is fantastic, it seems like to me Tony voters will probably be more impressed by it on a technical level.
Yeah, that's very true, which we'll get to in a moment.
So it could be kind of like I said, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King at the Oscars, or maybe even like Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, or even Gravity, which managed to win all those technical awards but lost in acting category and Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I guess you could also make that exact case for what was the film I was thinking of, that one? Oh yes, the original Star Wars, which won all these technical awards but lost picture, director, screenplay, and supporting actor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with the points. It should be interesting. So now on to best direction of a play, and I believe it's my turn.
Yeah, I think it is.
All right. So the nominees are Marianne Elliott, Angels in America; Joe Mantello, Three Tall Women; Patrick Marber, Travesties; John Tiffany, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child; and George C. Wolfe for The Iceman Cometh. And okay, so I have John Tiffany out front here. I mean, he seems to probably pull off what is probably the biggest theatrical achievement of the season with Harry Potter. I mean, and because everyone who's seen it has raved about how this is like a game changer for stagecraft. Because in this day and age, when almost everything on Broadway gets very technical, Tiffany goes a little more old school by staging things in a more suggestive way as opposed to literal. Not to mention that he shares a story credit with playwrights Jack Thorne and author J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I think like the technical aspect of this will definitely push him over the top. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some who say Marianne Elliott could possibly take this for Angels in America based on her impressive staging, and maybe she very well could, but I could see maybe some Tony voters feel, given that she's already won this category twice in this past decade, they may feel she's already won enough and that someone else should have a turn.
Well, that's a good point. Although those last two times, the last two Tonys she won, which were for Warhorse and Curious Incidents of the Dog in the Nighttime, those were her two prior Broadway credits. So, in fact, it's worth knowing she is a producer on Angels in America. So, if she loses director, she'll at least still have a shot winning a Tony in the revival category.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and in fact, as for Marianne Elliott, I mean, she probably pulls off the biggest acting achievement of this season with Angels in America. I mean, after having made a name for herself with innovative stagings of Warhorse and Curious Incident, she proves with Angels in America that she can do so much more than just spectacles.
Well, she did pull off an acting win for Alex Sharp in
Well,
Curious Incident.
well, true, but so again, I guess that's kind of in the middle of Warhorse and Harry and Angels in America, where Angels is more actor heavy, Warhorse is more tech heavy, and I guess Curious Incident was in between.
Mm-hmm. So as for the rest of my rankings, I have Joe Mantello in third place, George C. Wolfe in fourth, and Patrick Marber in fifth.
Those are my exact same rankings. So anything.
Right.
Now onto the design categories, and okay, will be a little tricky for us since again we haven't seen these nominees, so we're basing on again what we've been following. In fact, my colleague at Gold Derby, Sam Ekman, has recently had articles published where he goes over the design nominees and design categories, and so I'm reading it here, and I guess we'll start with the first one he talks about, which is Best Scenic Design of a Play, and the nominees are?
All right, so the nominees are Angels in America, Farinelli and the King, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, The Iceman Cometh, and Three Tall Women.
Okay, yeah, I'd say Christine Jones is a safe bet to win here because thanks to the gargantuan undertaking that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I mean, again, this is reading from Sam's article, but he says that the scenic design is supposed to be complex, featuring trapdoors, lifts, and plenty of moving parts, yet apparently never feels overblown and at times appears deceptively simple. So, and of course, as the editor-in-chief of Gold Derby, Tom O'Neill, keeps saying that in order to win, you gotta have the most of something, the biggest, like the most scenery, the most costumes, the most lighting.
Which is how I base some of my later technical predictions that I feel you and I might end up disagreeing on.
Well, that should be interesting to see. But yeah, Sam did mention Marion Buther's mesmerizing and surprising design for Three Tall Women. He thinks that she could pull off a surprise as she did last week at the Drama Desk Awards, and she could be helped, but she also created a set for Best Play nominee The Children earlier in the season, though I believe not as much of the Tony nominees here were nominated at the Drama Desk. Like, I know Harry Potter wasn't nominated there.
Yeah. So for the rest of my rankings, I have Three Tall Women in second place, and then Angels in America in third, Farinelli and the King in fourth, and The Iceman Cometh in fifth.
Oh, interesting, because I have, several of those same rankings. So I actually have Angels in America in second place because, as Sam points out in the blog, he thinks in another year Angels in America would take this home for Ian McNeil and Edward Pierce, who he recently interviewed, who actually adapted the set for the Neil Simon Theatre, which is a smaller venue, especially compared to the National Theatre where it was in London, because they supposedly did drastic reinterpretation of the classic. But yeah, it seems the scope of Harry Potter will likely prove to be too epic to ignore. And yeah, and I would also like to add, Angels of America I have in second, Farinelli and the King in third, Three Tall Women in fourth, and Iceman Cometh in fifth.
I guess I have Three Tall Women in second place just because it seems, out of reviews I've read, it seems to have gotten the most praise for its set, especially for like how, I guess, intimately ornate it is.
Well, apparently, and plus from photos I've seen,
I've read like excerpts of Three Tall Women and as in book form, and like the stage directions call for kind of like a small ornate set. that's like intimate but like very elegant, I guess, according to Edward Albee's stage directions.
Well, oh yeah, no, I was about to point out. In fact, I think I might just move Three Tall Women up to third place, and Farinelli the King down to fourth, pretty much because that play is the only one that's no longer running, and again compared to the rest of the nominees here, which are still running. So, yeah, and in fact, I guess I could see it being the one apple in a bag of oranges, or vice versa. As it's probably unlike the other nominees, where it's smaller, more intimate compared to the others, which are probably the bigger picture.
Yeah. All right. So
now, best costume design of a play. Okay, the nominees here are Angels in America, Farinelli and the King, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, The Iceman Cometh, and Three Tall Women. So, okay, if according to Sam's blog, if Farinelli and the King was still running, Jonathan Fensom would easily snatch this trophy for his 18th century gowns. I mean, the detailed period work apparently made the production a sheer delight to look at, and the drama desk voters agreed and granted him a win at the recent ceremony. In fact, I actually had him winning for a while, but I just recently moved up to Katrina Lindsay for Harry Potter because, well, Sam made points in his blog that, the limited run of Farinelli ended in March, and forgetful voters will probably be wowed by Katrina Lindsay's grab for Harry Potter because he thought that she stole a win in the first scene when the street clothes are transformed into Hogwarts robes in one fabulous flourish by the actors, and no other nominee could probably boast such flashy costume moments. And again, playing to Tom O'Neill's role, the most, as in, well, Harry Potter is probably the largest production out of all the nominees, so there again more costumes.
I did put Farinelli and the King at first, but then, like you, I switched to Harry Potter just because, with Farinelli closed, it hurts its chances. Because I've noticed that when the ornate period costumes tend to win this, it's usually for productions that are still running at the time, like Wolf Hall, or costumes that are like so out there, like with Twelfth Night trying to be as faithful to the Shakespearean style as possible.
Well, yeah, though 12th Night was also closed by the time Tony's came around, but then again, that was like an event of the fall season that year that was proving to be a huge contender for best revival play, though it didn't end up winning, but still, they at least showed support for it there, and Mark Rylance.
Mm-hmm. And then as for the rest of my rankings, I have Three Tall Women in third, Angels in America in fourth, and The Iceman Cometh in fifth.
Oh, well, I actually have The Iceman Cometh in third and Three Tall Women in fourth because, I mean, of course, we should say both those productions were done by Anne Roth, who is a double nominee here, and she is likely to vote split with herself, but I think a reason I have her ranked higher for The Iceman Cometh is because, well, that's the larger ensemble. So, again, more costumes, while Three Tall Women is basically a three-woman show. And again, I'm not familiar with the play, but so I don't know if there's any costume changes at all, but it probably doesn't look like many.
But I've noticed for costume design, even if it's a smaller ensemble or show, if the costumes have a more elegant look to them, then that can kind of help them be pushed over the edge. Because I'm guessing with the Iceman Comet, the costumes look more rugged, I guess, since it's set in a bar.
Yeah, very true.
Because like if you look at the history of pretty much whether it be the Tonys or the Oscars or the Emmys, it's always what are the most like elegant looking costumes, the most like beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the most like rugged or the most ugly.
That's a good point. But yeah, I have Angels in America in fifth place because, okay, I think if we're still going for nominees for these categories, it probably would be vulnerable to get in, even though it still would have, given how well it did in nominations. But again, well, even though it is still a contemporary period piece, it's set in the 80s, and I guess there are a couple of flashy costumes like like the Jeffrey Wright character from the original production and the HBO miniseries, he has some flamboyant costumes.
Mm.
And I guess Nathan Lane also has a couple of at least flamboyant robe costumes, so I guess I could see that.
Yeah, but I don't think it has a chance though.
Well, yeah, so and now on to lighting design. The nominees there are
All right. Angels in America, Farinelli and the King, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, The Iceman Cometh, and Junk.
okay, so okay, so yeah, so according to Sam's blog, he thought Paul Russell did wonders with actual candlelight on stage in Farinelli and the King, but that play again is not at the forefront of voters' minds. And two-time Tony winner Polly Constable he thinks would make a worthy winner for Angels America. I mean, he thought their lighting became imperative in delineating the ever-shifting scenes of Tony Kushner's epic. But who I have winning is Neil Austin. He seems favored to add a second Tony to his mantle for Harry Potter. And Sam abides by this production's wishes and keeps the secrets, but safe to say that Austin's beautiful work helps bring creatures and spells to life. So yeah, I have him in first place, and second place, Angels America. Third place, Farinelli and the King. Fourth place, The Iceman Cometh. And fifth place, Junk.
Oh, those are my exact same rankings.
All right. So yeah, because I think, well, again, Junk is probably the farthest removed out of all the nominees in this category, so I doubt voters are even really thinking about it at this point, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now on to the final play category, which is sound design, and these categories are back, but they are only being voted on by a qualified panel of experts. So if the general voting body was to assign this category, then Gareth Fry would easily win this award in a popularity contest for Harry Potter. I mean, Sam thought that the effects-heavy production wouldn't be able to bring the wizarding world to life without his soundscape. And while I do have him out front, and I think he could still win, Sam did point out that on a smaller panel of voters, that might allow for a singular taste to break through. In that case, an upset win by Angels in America sound designer Ian Dickinson, who I have in second place, does seem entirely possible. I mean, in fact, Sam would argue that the Angels' entrance in Millennium Approaches is one of the most memorable uses of sound in the entire season, though Harry Potter will probably still impress the panel for a win, but could be one design category that puts a stop for a Potter sweep. And in the rest of my rankings, I have Travis Dees in third, Iceman Cometh in fourth, and 1984 in fifth.
So I have the same top two, but I actually have 1984 in third place, mainly because I've read how the sound design in that play was quite effective, and apparently in some of the scenes, like, and I base this off, and I know this scene because I've obviously had to read the book in high school. The scene where O'Brien tortures Winston apparently was so effective that that audience members literally shouted at the actors to stop because they were frightened by what they were witnessing. So like the sound really helped carry the torture scenes near the end effectively, from what I've read, even if the production itself got mixed reviews.
Well, yes, and it's long gone. It ended its limits run sometime last year, and this is its only nomination. But then again, since this is being voted on by Pure Group this year, I probably wouldn't be so surprised if Tom Gibbons ended up winning this award.
And then I have Travesties in fourth and The Iceman Cometh in fifth.
Okay, and I guess I have Travesties ranked a little higher because, again, there really aren't many opportunities to award it, and I'm not familiar with the play, but from what I'm aware, there's barely a lot of stuff that happens in it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the play either. I just know it features a lot of historical people as characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in any case, we just gone through all the play categories, so we'll be back soon to discuss our predictions in the musical categories. So we'll be back in a minute.